As a creative aspect, TV is one of the best things that we do as a species. Along with music and film and books, they bring out the best creative of all of us. They entertain and they bring so much joy to many. They invoke emotion and enable us to feel things that we bury sometimes deep down. That's what this podcast is for. Welcome to A Million Little TV Shows. This is what I call the breakdown while I break down. Each week I will go through a different TV show, a different season of that TV show, and different episodes of that show. And I will break down not only emotions, but I will break down stories from my life, and let you know why these TV shows mean so much to me, and why I believe that they are some of the most important shows out there. This podcast is here to highlight a lot of smaller TV shows, or TV shows that don't really get a platform, because we know of a bunch of TV shows that get a multitude of different podcasts. Ted Lasso, Game of Thrones, The Office, they've all got several podcasts out there analysing all types of different things. But there's not many out there for the little guy, and that's what I'm trying to highlight. So each week I will go through a different show, different seasons, different episodes, and I will go across all different kinds of genres and different countries to bring you what I believe is some of the best TV out there. So I'm glad you're here with me. I'm glad you're here for this journey. And if you've watched the shows before and you wanted to come here and get an analysis on them and have someone go through them and pick out bits that you might have enjoyed, then I'm glad you are here. If, however, you have never watched the show and you just want to come and have someone talk in your ear about different TV shows, I'm glad you are here. But I hope that it inspires some people to go and seek out these TV shows. They deserve to be watched. They were made with love and care, and they are the same as this podcast, made with love and care. I am your host, Mike, and I will take you through every adventure, every horror, every piece of drama, and I hope that you enjoy the show. Hello there, and welcome back to this A Million Little TV Shows podcast. This is now episode 4 of season 12, and today we're going to be going back to the amazing French drama, The Bonfire of Destiny. And I am not going to attempt the French because you know how badly that went in the first episode, so I just really enjoyed this series when it came on, and I've enjoyed the first half of actually watching this again, and I think it's just such a great show to run through with such a stellar cast. I'd never heard of any of them because obviously they're all French actors, and I just think that being able to experience something in its native language, and obviously I am using subtitles, but listening to something in its native language like this is really interesting, and you don't lose a lot in translation. You can feel every emotion, you can feel the personal struggle that these people are going through, and yeah, I just really enjoy it. I just think it's got a lot of heart, and I really just want to get back into it. So I think we should just get on with it, but before we do, I've got a couple of announcements to make, and I'm really happy with the way things are going. But I got married over Christmas, and I met the love of my life, 15 years ago, but we got back together recently and we got married over Christmas, and yeah, so I know this comes out in March, but I am recording in January, so I just wanted to give you that little bit of background that things are changing. Podcast won't change. I am just trying to get as far ahead as possible before I also, more big news, have a big move. I am moving to Canada to be with my wife, and from there I will continue the podcast and hopefully get some more likes, listens, all that good shit. But yeah, I just wanted to give you a quick update on how things are going with me, because I know I don't often do that, but just something interesting for you guys. But as I say, I will crack on with today's episode. So this is the Bonfire of Destiny mini-series, episodes 5 to 8. Episode 5. Okay, so let's do a quick recap on the main players in this show. We have Adrienne, Rose, and Alice. Now I'll take them in that order. So Adrienne is married to Mark Anthony, who is a bit of a shit. He is a nasty piece of work. He seems to be a bit kind of mafioso, and he doesn't treat her very well. She has decided to run away from him with her new love, Hugh, and she wants to take her daughter, Claudette, with her. Due to the fire that happens at the charity event, she actually has a good idea of how to get away from Mark Anthony, and she fakes her own death. everyone thinks that she burns up in the fire, but she was only there for a few moments before she stole some time away with her lover. However, at the end of the last episode, we saw that she actually got taken away by the police, and just as she was about to be reunited with her daughter had been sent away by her husband, and she had been sent to private school. So Adrienne knew that Mark Antony would bring their daughter back if it seemed like Adrienne had died. So that was the plan. She'd got word to her daughter that she was still alive, and she actually told her that she was going to meet her in the park. However, on that day, Adrienne got arrested, and as far as we know, Claudette went home. Then we've got Rose. Rose was just a handmaiden, it would seem, to Alice, and she got caught up in the chaos at the bazaar and ended up getting really badly injured. She didn't die, but a lot of people think that she has died, including both Alice and Jean, her husband. However, she is found later on by Madame Hutchin, who actually takes her in and replaces her daughter Odette, who did die in the fire, with Rose, because Rose has a badly burnt face and the Madame thinks that she can get away with it. She essentially kidnaps this woman. Rose, however, finds out that she's pregnant with her husband's baby and wants to get back to her normal life, but the Madame wants to keep her there so that she can look after the Madame's grandson against what seems to be a very violent arsehole of a husband that used to be married to Odette. And so she agrees to stay. Alice, upon entering the bazaar to actually go and attend this charity event, she is with a man named Julian. Now, Julian is a bit of a coward and ended up leaving her to die within the fire. However, when it turns out that she made it out, he tries to gain her favour again. He's already gained the favour of her mother and her father, Auguste and Matilda, but Alice knows what a nasty piece of work he is. She's seen that he is not a brave man and not someone that really cares for her. He just wants her as status. Alice was actually saved by a man named Victor, who believes that he was there and started the fire. He's part of a resistance and was there with his friend who set some explosives up in the actual charity event. And everyone else around the town believes that it was him as well, so the police are actually looking for him. Alice has been betrothed to Julienne and she isn't happy about this, but her father, Auguste, is in a lot of debt. And it seems to be more transactional than actual love for his daughter that he is making her marry this odd man. But I think now we're all caught up. So, as we go into this episode, we actually meet the husband of Odette. And since we start there, I think that's where it's best to kick off from. So, obviously, Rose is playing the part of Odette, and this man turns up. As soon as he does, his son dismisses him, and the madam just doesn't like him at all. He is her son, but she isn't keen on him. He's told not to disturb Odette, and he does that anyway, because he's just a piece of shit, really. He takes some tatty flowers upstairs and drops them off, and then he goes and sees one of his many lovers, I would suppose, in one of the serving girls in the madam's house. He's such a classy guy that he bought her a dildo, and then later on he proceeds to enjoy time with her. He seems to be into BDSM, and Rose, or Odette, catches them at it. She doesn't say anything, she just looks through the peephole and kind of gets what he's into. The reason for this is because Odette has been told by the madam that she has to get rid of her child, and she really doesn't want to. This is the first child with her husband Jean, and she knows one day she will get back to him. And so she has to come up with a plan. That plan, of course, is going to be devastating for her, because her and Jean have always been thick as thieves. They've always been together. They've been in love for what seems like a while now, and they're meant for each other. But of course, to make sure that she can keep the baby, she's going to have to fake her pregnancy. And by fake her pregnancy, I mean she goes and sleeps with Odette's husband and ends up letting him come inside her. So she is faking her pregnancy by being pregnant before she got pregnant, I suppose. But at least now she will have the backing of Odette's husband when it comes to not being able to get rid of this child. And in a way, that's what she wanted all along. She knows at some point she will get away, but it's just when. And she knew that she couldn't get rid of Jean's baby because, I mean, especially back in that era, anything could have happened. They wanted to do a quickie abortion in the room, and it was like there was a woman just preparing what looked like a coat hanger. Like, it was pretty fucking grim. As for Alice, like I've said, she has a thing for Victor. She's already slept with him and she wants to be with him more, but she knows that he's a hunted man and she wants to clear his name. Julien, however, is just a weaselly little scumbag and is trying to marry her. At this point, it's their engagement party. She obviously doesn't want to be there, but she is there because her parents need her to be, and she's just kind of going through the motions. But Julien, who thinks that she'd forgiven him for what he did at the fire, realises that she hasn't. And so he starts becoming suspicious of her and, of course, Victor, because she wants to clear his name. She's already stated that, not just to him, but to her father, because he is an innocent man. She ends up going over to see Rose, who tells her tale of what actually happened, but she dresses it up as she was Odette at the time. And so Rose tells her, look, what I saw was there was a fire in the projection room and they tried to put it out. However, it didn't work, and that is what caused the devastation. It all started there. It wasn't anyone creating explosives. And so Alice now has a good shot at actually being able to clear Victor's name. But of course, she goes to see Victor because she can't wait to talk to him, and Julien follows her. The only problem is Rose, or Odette, is going to be not a good witness, because if it comes out that she's Rose, then her credibility is gone. And so now she's going to have to convince everyone that she's still Odette, and she may never get back to Jean if Alice pursues this line. And then we'll get to Adrienne. So Adrienne was obviously arrested at the last episode, and she doesn't know where her daughter is. Neither does Mark Anthony, but he does know that his wife is still alive. And so he has the city searched for both Adriana and his daughter, believing that the two will be together. He starts remembering some things that she would do all the time, and she would constantly stop for the street kids who were actually selling papers. She would always hand them something and they would run off and they would go and speak to Hughes or get messages to him or whatever it was. And these messages came in the actual form of papers, like newspapers. The daily print would actually have little indentations or little markings on it, and Mark Anthony starts to realise that these kids know more than they're letting on, so he has one of them hunted down. This is how much of a scumbag this guy is. He beats a child to get information from him, and then he goes and pursues his wife. However, when he gets to Hughes' flat, she isn't there, but Hughes knows that he's on the way. So Hughes runs home, runs into Mark Anthony, and Mark Anthony stabs him several times, leaving him for Adrienne to find. And so when she comes back, she gets him the medical support that he needs, and she sits by his bedside. He tells her that she just needs to go. She needs to look after herself and do what is best for her, and then he dies there and then, leaving her devastated. She now has no support in her lover, and she has no daughter. She doesn't know where she is. Even though she's been out searching for her, she can't find her. And she is also being hunted by her ex-husband, who has hired a bunch of goons to go after her. So it is a really rough time for Adrienne right now, but all three ladies are in a real dire straits. Episode 6. Now, as you may know from the last episode, I actually kept calling Adrienne's daughter Claudette and not Camille. Claudette, I'm pretty sure, was from Interview with a Vampire, Kirsten Dunst, but anywho, I got my French ladies mixed up. So it's actually Camille, but I'll probably say Claudette again. However, we'll start with Rose on this one. So after she rocked her husband's world in the last episode, or at least Odette's husband's world, she's now got a bit of a problem because this guy just won't leave her alone. He essentially sexually assaults her in front of her own son, or in front of his son. Obviously, it's not her son. And so this guy is just a complete waste of space. He's a real fucking piece of work. And so is the madame, because she knows what's going on and she doesn't even try to help. And I know I said that Odette's husband was actually the madame's son, but obviously it can't be the madame's son because Odette was her daughter. So he's her son-in-law, but he's a real fucking piece of work. And after essentially what I can only assume is raping her, I don't imagine that she was up for it when he turned up in their son's bedroom while they were playing and essentially told their son to get out so that he could have his way. So I don't suppose that she was very much up for it. But after that, he goes and speaks to the madam, and he is smitten now. He basically tells the madam that he wants to have a celebration of her life and sort of reintroduce her to society and just have everyone know that his wife is back on the scene. The madam knows that he'll be gone soon enough anyway, but for now she's just going to have to accommodate the whims of this fucking idiot. Rose, or Odette, however, ends up getting some really devastating news because of an issue we will talk about. Jean has actually been fired from his job, and he has decided to go over and see Madame Hutchin and see if there is anything that she can do, whether she needs a coachman or not, or a footman or whatever it's called. But obviously once he gets there, he has to interact with Rose. She isn't recognisable to him. Obviously she's got half a face burnt, and she's also covering her face most of the time anyway. But the madam clocks it. She sees that this man is her husband and Rose is pregnant with this man's child. So she's going to do anything and everything to try and get back with him, even though she doesn't give the game away straight away. As for Alice, she and Victor go and see the projectionist. He tells them what happened, he tells them that there was an issue, and he tells them that he wasn't the one who set up the projector. The person who set up the projector was actually the person who organised the whole cinema event, and that, of course, was Alice's father, Auguste. Alice knows that she has to speak to her father to try and clear Victor's name, but it would mean that he would be on the hook for actually killing all those people. Even though he wasn't there, he set the whole thing up, and it was that fire that did all the damage. She goes to him and she manages to convince him to actually confess, but there's not really much point. The person he has to confess to is Mark Anthony, and, well, he wants an uprising in the city. He knows that the campaign that he is on to become the president of Paris, or the mayor of Paris, or whatever it is, that he needs someone to take the fall for this, and he needs someone to be sort of the antagonist against him, and that in this case is going to be Victor. If he can have Victor hanged or guillotined, then he can justify his march forward to power. But everyone knows that if he becomes a powerful man, more so than what he is now, it's going to be devastating. But August tells him, and Mark Anthony does nothing. Now, what I haven't said in my review from the last episode is that August is the brother-in-law of Adrienne, because Matilda is her sister and Alice is her niece. So now the three women in August's life are going to have to come together to try and take out Mark Anthony. Rose, however, has more issues to deal with when she sees that Victor ends up getting hauled off because, well, he's been implicated in what's been going on. He is known as a terrorist and is taken into custody. Adrienne is on the warpath. She gets word that her daughter is now with Matilda, and when she actually goes over to see and collect her daughter, Mark Anthony's already there. He has been following Camille through the city and knows that she is at her aunt's house. He goes to collect her and he takes her back home. So not only has Mark Anthony taken away her lover, he's now got their daughter back. And he's such a scumbag because he has also killed his daughter's guinea pig. He's basically fed it to his dog and made it into some sort of lesson for her, because he's basically said that the guinea pig got loose. It got out of its cage and it escaped. And if anyone tries to escape, they'll die, including your mother. So he's just a real piece of fucking work. And every time that I see him on screen, I mean, he's perfect for this, because every time I see him on screen, he looks like the devil. And he looks mean and scary, and he's horrible. I'm sure he's, a great guy in real life, but my God, he is quite terrifying. He's kind of giving an Al Pacino kind of vibe, and I'm here for it because he looks really good in it. But Adrienne decides to call his bluff because she ends up finding out some information about her husband. Years ago, her husband actually killed a woman named Ava. Ava is the mother of Victor, and that is why Detective Hennon has actually been looking into Mark Anthony for so long. He knows that he killed her, but he can't actually prove it. And it turns out that years ago, they were madly in love, as in Mark Anthony and Ava. But things ended up going wrong between them. She wanted to leave and go and tour because she was a singer, and he wanted to stay because he was an MP and just wanted to gain more and more power. And so he ended up killing her. But she also found out that he was a spy or a double agent for the Germans, and he has been selling information to the Germans for a long time. He was doing it through music notes, and he had Ava helping him. So now Adrienne is tasked with actually finding where these music notes are. She knows they're probably in his safe, in his study, and she knows how to get into the house and get them. But instead of being sneaky this time, she decides to walk straight through the front door. She walks in as he's basically giving a press conference about him running for government, and she literally looks him in the eye. And he knows, you can see the look on his face, he knows he's fucked up, because she looks like fire is about to come out of her goddamn eyes. And the next 2 episodes are going to be fucking epic. Episode 7. So once again we'll start with Rose, or Odette. Obviously now that her husband's back in her life, which I thought it was because of him getting fired, but it turns out that he ended up getting a letter from her and remembered that the seal came from this house, so has ended up coming to the house to try and figure out why the tickets for America that he'd been sent had actually been sent in an envelope from this house. But the reason I thought he'd been fired is because, well, August is basically going to be bankrupt because his daughter isn't going to get married, and his brother-in-law just doesn't want to have anything to do with him. He certainly doesn't want to help him out. But anyway, back to Rose. So now that she's had this plan of her getting pregnant, one of the staff who actually works at the madam's house goes and speaks to her, or Odette's husband. This is the one that he's having the affair with, and she has become jealous because she's no longer getting the affection that she believes that she deserves, because it's obviously all going to Odette. And so she decides to tell him some home truths. She tells him that she's heard on the grapevine that Odette is pregnant, and with the fact that he's only been home a few days, and, you know, that they've only slept together 1 or 2 times now. I mean, one, she took advantage of him, and another, he probably took advantage of her. But it now seems that there is a lot more to this, and he understands why she is being the way that she has been. Because she's pregnant and she's trying to cover up the fact that she is pregnant with another man's child. Again, he thinks this is his wife. He doesn't know that she's nothing to do with him, and it's actually someone else's wife and someone else's child. And so this party for her, he actually calls her bluff. He tells her, look, what we're going to do is we're going to go downstairs, and we're not going to mention the fact that you're pregnant. We're going to get it aborted, and we're going to do things right for us. But she goes one better. When they go downstairs, people are all interested in how Odette is, and once she goes to this party, she's actually wearing a mask, which quite a few are, because there's quite a few that were affected by that fire, and there are others that are just wearing them in solidarity. They head downstairs, and Odette ends up talking to the room full of people and tells them that they have their own special surprise to announce to the world, essentially guaranteeing that Odette's husband cannot do anything towards her, because now the whole of upper society is expecting her to be with child. But of course, this is going to piss him off, because he knows that she has been sleeping with someone else. The madam finds out that Jean is actually Rose's husband, and tells him that he needs to leave. Tells him that he is no longer required at the house, and that he can be on his merry way. However, as he tries to leave, he realises that he can't leave without actually knowing. He's had a sense that his wife is in that house for such a long time, and when one of the maids, the one who is sleeping with Odette's husband, starts talking about how she thinks how it's been a different woman in Odette's place, Jean starts to get suspicious. He sees that it is his wife and eventually knocks on her door. She's always locked away from everyone, and he thinks since it's his last day, he might as well try. He knocks on her door, and she realises that it's her husband. He tells her how he knew that she had survived, and he tells her that he wishes her well. Just as he's walking away, she opens the door, and there is an emotional reunion between the two of them. They haven't seen each other in so long, and you can tell that they are a true couple. They come up with a plan, and eventually he leaves, due to the fact that everyone has started to come into the house now, including the madam. But that night, just as Rose is trying to leave, Odette's husband, her fake husband, sees her running across the courtyard to meet Jean. He picks up his pistol and he runs off after them, and I'm sure we'll get a conclusion in the final episode of what happens there. Alice decides to go to the papers. She essentially tells on her dad, she grasses him up to the press, and they figure out why someone like Mark Antony would actually try and silence the people around him, because he's trying to gain power, he's trying to get more and more power, and he's actually going to become the president of the Senate. So any bad shit around him at that point, he really needs to quash. And he thinks that he has in this case, because he has managed to kill the projectionist, and anyone else that stands in his way, he is willing to take out. And so when Mark Antony actually confronts August about this, August knows he has to do something to protect his daughter. He doesn't want her going out and getting killed by this man who is just ruthless. And so he decides the only course of action is to actually lock her in a room, which sounds horrid, but at this point he's got to keep her safe. He knows that they're screwed because Julien has called off the wedding. They're in a bad way when it comes to money, and he could be on the hook for this whole bazaar fire. But all Alice wants to do is see justice made and Victor to be free so that they can be together. As for Mark Antony and Adrienne confronts him, and he tells her basically that things aren't going to work out the way that she wants them to. He takes her to a different room within the house that is basically locked off from everywhere else and keeps her locked in this room. He also keeps her separate from her daughter, who is locked in her room. So this man has a lot of secrets hidden away in this house, but Adrienne knows that she is there for one reason and one reason only. That is to find these coded messages out of sheet music that Mark Antony was actually trying to give to the Germans. And so she seduces him. She uses her feminine wiles and her body and seduces her husband, essentially gaining favour with him and making sure that he drops his guard. The moment he drops his guard, she manages to escape from the room, and then she goes to the safe. She finds the papers she needs, and she mails them to the detective Hennion. The only problem with that is, because he wasn't able to catch Victor before, the chief of police has actually put him under arrest as well. So his desk is vacant when the letter lands on there that contains all this information that will essentially put her husband away, make Victor a free man, make him a free man, and clarify all of this, what's gone on, as well as his own suspicions of the fact that this man killed Ava. So going into this last episode, it's going to be a lot to actually get through to make sure that everyone comes out of this okay, apart from probably Mark Antony, because the actor is great, but he is such a shitbag. And finally, episode 8. Going to start with Alice on this one, because the other two stories are a lot more in depth. And as good as her story was, I mean, we can kind of guess where it was going in the end. So her father ends up going to speak to her, and he tells her that she's going to have to tell everyone that it was a lie, what she said in the paper, and that actually Victor was the man who actually did all of this. But of course, this is going to break her heart. She can't do that. She's obviously in love with him and she wants to be with him. But right now, he's on the executioner's list. And so August goes and sees Mark Antony, and Mark Antony basically tells him, look, she's not going to write it, you're going to write it. So he makes August sign something that is basically a retraction of what his daughter had said. And so when she goes to see Victor in prison to tell him exactly what's happened and that she's written to the press and that there is now doubt against his name, he tells her, well, that's not what I've heard. I've heard that tomorrow I will be executed. And that's exactly where we see him next. We see him going, I want to say to the gallows, it wasn't to the gallows, but we see him going towards the guillotine. Alice is in the crowd and her parents turn up and she virtually begs her father to tell everyone what happened. Him being quite the respected man around town, it would make sense that people would listen to him. And eventually he does the right thing. He tells the crowd to stop, he tells them what happened, he tells them that he is responsible for what happened. It was an accident, but it was all on him. And so the chief of police basically tells them that the execution is off and Victor will be set free once they can prove what has been said. They take August in for questioning, and of course Alice and Matilda don't seem to realise why he's been taken in for questioning, but he is nonetheless, and Victor is let go. We aren't sure of August's fate at this point. And by at this point, I mean by the end of the series. And then there's Adrienne, who is obviously in this shit situation where she's basically locked in her own house. away from her daughter. But it would seem Mark Anthony does have some sort of heart because he lets her see her. Camille comes in and they talk for a while, and Adrienne tells her of a plan to get them both out of there. Essentially, during a piano lesson, Camille walks out and storms out into the garden and then is taken by one of the street boys who has been helping Adrienne all this time. And when Mark Anthony finds out that she's no longer there, he ends up threatening Adrienne. But he is very sinister with it, and it sounds horrific whatever he's going to end up doing to her. He doesn't have to say a lot, he just does it with a smirk, a smile, whatever it is. It's crazy how scary the man is, but you can feel it bouncing off the screen. There's some people you just think are a joke, whereas him, he's just incredibly creepy. And it's such a testament to the actual actor. He's done really well in that role. And I would like to see him pursue the devil at some point. I think some sort of French TV show where he was a devil, it would be brilliant. But anyway, that's my opinion. And so Adrienne knows to fight fire with fire at this point, and she mentions the name of Ava, the woman that he killed, and he continues to threaten her. He essentially says that he will do exactly what he did to Adrienne as to what he did to Ava, so he's got no compulsion about killing. And of course, Adrienne's meant to be dead, so no one's going to come looking for her. But with the fact that Victor has actually been let go, it means that Detective Hennon is now out of prison. He was locked up at the behest of Mark Anthony, and now he's innocent because, well, Victor's innocent. And so when he actually sits with the chief of police and talks through what happened and everything that has been going on with Mark Anthony, and how he is a German spy, essentially, or he's been feeding information to the Germans, one of his officers comes back in with an envelope and tells him, "This was left on your desk. I opened it, but I didn't understand it." But now he does understand what's going on, and he hands him the proof of what has happened. The detective and the rest of the police department go down there, and they arrest Mark Anthony. Or at least they're about to put him under arrest, but they realise Adrienne isn't anywhere in sight. The detective demands to know where Adrienne is, and he goes off in the direction that he's pointed, not knowing that she's actually behind a secret door within the house. And at this point, Mark Anthony basically plays on the sympathy of the chief of police. He essentially says, "Look, I'm a rich man and I think I deserve to be not carted off in handcuffs or arrested or go to prison or even be beheaded. I believe that I'm entitled to a dignified death." And so the chief clears the room and leaves him to his own devices. But of course we know that Mark Anthony's not going to shoot himself, and eventually when Adrienne isn't discovered in this room, the detective comes back and tries to question him, but of course Mark Anthony's gone. That sick son of a bitch has actually gone down to the room where Adrienne is and has started to threaten her. He's tied her up and he's started to pour lamp oil over her, threatening her with a match and saying that basically she should have died in that fire and that he's quite happy to make that happen right now. But before setting her on fire, he actually moves back, blows out the match, and tells her that she'll miss him when he's gone. He then walks into another room, takes out his pistol, and we hear a gunshot. Eventually, the detective and the chief of police and everyone else get down to the room, and they save Adrienne. However, when they check in the room where Mark Anthony went, he's nowhere to be seen. He's done a runner, because of course he has. He was always that guy. They believe that he's run to Germany, but we never know. Very much like August, we just never know. And then there's Rose. So of course we know that Rose was going to be going off with her husband. She's gone and met Jean in a barn, but we also know that Odette's husband has seen her go that way. He follows her into the barn, finds her with Jean, and the two fight. Rose is pushed down and Jean gets into this fight. While he's on his back, his wife Rose comes over and beats Odette's husband to death. Jean then tells them that they should run. They leave, but Rose realises that she can't do this. She can't run away. She has to stay. She has to make this right, because otherwise they will come after them. They will hunt them. They can't be on the run for the rest of their lives. And so Rose goes back knowing that she can make this crime scene look different. She takes a horse into the barn and makes it stomp on the dead body. As soon as the madam finds out what's happened, that the horse has kicked the guy to death, she feels no indifference towards it. She doesn't care, because she didn't like him anyway. But the madam actually finds something in the barn. She finds a jewel, and she knows that it was Rose who did this. she goes and speaks to Rose and says, look, I'm an old woman. I'm ill. I'm dying. I'm coughing up blood. Like, I'm not going to be long for this earth. Now, you've lost your husband, or Odette has lost her husband, and it would make sense that if she lost her husband and maybe down the line she could find a new husband, maybe someone who has recently been widowed, quote unquote, that maybe no one would talk about any of it. Maybe we just bring Jean back and he can stay in the house. And so that's what she does. She brings Jean back, Rose stays, and she knows that she is going to inherit a fuck ton of money and this whole estate. And they know that they can stay and live forever with Thomas, with their own child, and they can actually have a happy life. She sends word to Alice, and Alice comes to see her. Rose tells her, look, we're going to be staying here for a while. Alice has seen that Jean is there, and she's seen that he's happy. And Rose tells her, look, we are staying, and it may not be America. And it's at that point that Alice realises who Rose is, who Odette is, that it's her old friend. She begs for the forgiveness of Rose and tells her, I can't believe that I didn't realise. And Rose tells her, I needed you not to, because basically it would have blown everything. And so finally they realise that they all survived. Adrienne may not be in the picture at that point, but she survived, Rose survived, and Alice survived. And they all got what they wanted. Adrienne got away from the man who was torturing her. Rose managed to get her husband back, and Alice managed to get with Victor, the man that she loved. Now, this was excellent. Like, I don't understand why this didn't get more attention when it actually came out. And, well, I do, because it's in French and there's not going to be a lot of English-speaking people that would want to watch this. However, I would say it is worth a go, because it is so well acted, it's so well done, and okay, you don't want to have to read, you just want to switch off your brain or whatever, but to be fair, you could probably watch this and understand most of it without actually knowing a lick of French. So I just think it's a very good show to watch and to introduce yourself to if you want to get into some sort of language program. Like, it was very well done, and the whole aesthetic around it, the costumes and the look of all the manors and the places that they were living in, the chateaus and all that shit, it was so beautiful. There wasn't a chateau in sight, but it was so beautiful and really, really well done. I'm really chuffed that I actually watched this series, and then when I actually had the concept of this podcast, I wanted to have some international shows on it, and this was the standout for me. Like, there's a lot of damn good shows out there, but this was a real standout for me, and I really wanted to cover it because it was so good, and you really felt the emotional weight of all three main characters in the show. And so, yeah, it was an excellent show. I really enjoyed it, and I'm so glad that I managed to cover it on here and watch it again, because it stood up. It really stood up to how you can see a series. So there's times when you'll watch a series and you may not concentrate on all of it and it just doesn't feel right and blah blah blah, but because I've watched this before and you have to concentrate on it because of the subtitles, because of the different language, and then subsequently watching it again, it really does stand up as a good show. And like I say, it's just strange that it didn't get as much press as it should have done, and once again I do understand why, but yeah, it was great. I loved watching the show. I'm so glad that I got to go through it, but I'm done for today. My voice is sore after all this time off. I've had a couple of weeks off, so yeah, I'm finally getting back into this. These were all pretty much pre-recorded anyway, so it's a weird time for me right now, obviously with the big move and everything like that, so yeah, I'm a bit all over the place, but I'm still cracking these out. These will still come out. I won't go anywhere when it comes to the podcast, but anyway, until next time, I will speak to you soon. Bye. As always, thank you for listening to this podcast, and you could really help me and the podcast by giving a like, share, subscribe on all major platforms that you listen to podcasts on. As an independent podcaster, this will just help me exponentially when it comes to actually doing more things with this podcast. I truly do enjoy this, and I absolutely love revisiting these TV shows with you guys. So any engagement from you is always welcome, and I will try and listen to all of you when you give suggestions or just tell me what you think about the podcast. But once again, thank you for listening, and until next time, I will speak to you soon. Bye.